자, 이번 주 게스트는
한국 과학기술의 요람 카이스트 강성모 총장님입니다.
네. 올해 초에 새로 부임하셨죠?
예, 한 40년 넘게 미국 생활을 하시다가 이제 올해 초에 신임 총장님으로 새로 구원투수처럼 짠 등장하셨어요.
구원투수라고 하셨는데 뭐 카이스트에 문제라도 있나요?
100% 영어 수업이나 고학점 장학금 제도가 최근에 논란이 되긴 했어요.
그래서 그때 자살하는 사람들도 좀 많이 있었고 그러다 보니까 이제 몇 년 전부터 카이스트가 이제 개혁을 하겠다고 하다 보니 좀 변화의 과정이 필요했던 것 같아요. 그래서 그런 과도기적인 그런 시점에 제 총장님이 새로 부임을 하셨죠.
오랜만에 한국에 오신 것도 부담스러웠을 텐데 어깨가 좀 무거우시겠어요. 근데 강 총장님은 어떤 변화를 이끌고 계시나요?
그 학교 시스템 개혁도 계속 진행하시지만 역시 가장 주목받는 건 소통의 문화인 것 같아요.
기사에서 보니까 학생들하고도 굉장히 가깝게 지내신다고 해서 저희가 촬영도 가능했어요.
네, 진짜 그래요?
학생 식당에서 학생들하고 굉장히 소탈하게 이야기 나누고 계시더라고요.
최근에는 학생이랑 총장님이랑 말춤 추는 모습이 유튜브에도 나왔었어요.
좀 재미있는 별명이 있으시더라고요. 캡틴 스무드. 약간 미스터 스무드처럼.
제 얘기하시는 거죠 지금?
미국 연구소하고 대학 총장 시절에 사건을 해결해 나가는 과정이 굉장히 감동스러웠다고 하더라고요.
그래요. 그 얘기 그래서 스튜디오에서 들어보는 것도 되게 재밌을 것 같아요. 좀 자세히 들어보면.
그래요. 뭔가 많은 에피소드가 얽혀있는 키워드 같아요. 그렇죠?
근데 프로필 보니까 70년대에 유학을 가셨던데 그러면 집안이 좋으셨거나 아니면 천재셨거나 그러셨을 것 같은데.
가난한 독립운동가 후손이셨는데 그 육사 시험에서 한 번 낙방하고 군대를 먼저 갔다 오셨어요. 그 뒤에 연세대학교에 입학하셨고. 그러면 유학은요?
그 학교에서 딱 한 명만 뽑아갖고 유학을 보내주는 기회가 있었는데 군대를 갔다 온 게 플러스가 돼갖고 그 기회를 딱 잡은 거죠.
전화위복이네요. 운도 조금 따랐던 것 같고. 근데 미국 생활을 보니까는 도전 정신이 남달랐던 것 같아요.
그 요즘 카이스트 돌아가는 거 보면은 총장님의 그런 마인드가 많이 녹아있는 것 같아요. 엔드런 프로젝트 이것도 좀 신선한 것 같은데.
창업해서 실리콘밸리에 진출하는 거 그 얘기하는
네.
거죠. 그러니까 보통 옛날에는 카이스트 하면은 공부 한 열심히 하는 박사님 같은 이미지가 떠올랐는데 이제 적극적으로 막 창업을 하고 이렇게 한다니까 되게 새로운 기분이 많이 들더라고요.
하긴 반도체나 로봇 같은 신기술도 카이스트가 갖고 있는 게 많으니까 가능성이 있을 것 같아요.
리더가 바뀌면 문화도 바뀐다고 하잖아요. 그래서 카이스트에 부는 새로운 바람을 직접 확인해 보면 좋을 것 같아요. 키워드 한번 뽑아볼게요. 뭘로 시작할까요?
저는 이 스무드 카리스마가 우리 조 PD하고 자꾸 연관을 시키는데 어떻게 다른 건지 총장님의 그 스무드 카리스마가 어떻게 다른지를 좀 자세히 알아봤으면 좋겠어요.
미스터 스무드보다 한 단계 업그레이드된
좋은데요?
스무드. 그리고요?
그 다음에 카이스트에 오시고 변화가 많이 생겼다고 들었는데 변화의 물결로 한번 들어보고 싶어요.
좋아요. 하나 더 해야 되겠죠?
저는 그 엔드런 프로젝트 그게 뭔지 좀 정확히 좀 알고 싶은데요.
영어겠죠? 엔드런. 엔드런 프로젝트. 캡틴 스무드와의 만남 너무 기대돼요.
He is the first Korean to serve as president at both a Korean and American university. He is known as the representative Korean success story. However, those close to him say he is the embodiment of servant leadership. The higher he rises, the lower he positions himself to better communicate with his students and staff. Please welcome KAIST President Sung-mo Steve Kang. Dr. Kang, thank you so much for appearing on our show.
Great honor to be here. Thank you.
It's our pleasure. And also, belated congratulations. I know that you were appointed as president of KAIST back in February. So about half a year has passed. How has it gone so far?
Well, it took some time to get adjusted to a new environment, but I'm really excited to be at KAIST. So many wonderful people, professors and dedicated staff, and very talented students. So it's a great honor and a pleasure to be at KAIST.
Right. Your acceptance speech was quite memorable, especially I think because you mentioned specifically thanks to your wife. And I know you must be very grateful, but was it also a strategic move? Did she perhaps oppose you coming back to Korea after spending more than 4 decades in the US?
After more than 4 decades, changing the environment was not easy. So yes, there was some hesitation, especially on my wife's part. But once we made the decision, she was fully behind it. But truly, I've been benefited a lot from her help. While I was a graduate student, while I was a professor, all along in my life. So I always am appreciative of her help, and I need her help as well.
Well, that's great to hear. In your acceptance speech, I also hear that you mentioned the film Mission, and some of our younger audiences might not remember that film. It starred Robert De Niro, of course. Why did you mention that film in your speech?
It was a really memorable film. And what struck me was especially the scene when Robert De Niro climbed the steep the fall. And when he reached at the top, he was still with lots of luggage on his back. And it was a start of a new life for him. And maybe it was the wisdom of native Indians who cut off all this luggage down the fall. And I think that lightened his load, and maybe it was a great new start. KAIST has had some challenging, especially some growing pains during the last few years. There has been some really troubling moments within KAIST, and I just wanted to have a new start at KAIST, not focusing on the past, but rather focusing on the future.
Right. Because as you just mentioned, I'm sure there was some hesitation from your wife's part, but also for you. You did come at quite a troubled time in KAIST's history. Almost, I think some refer to you as the relief pitcher. But what finally convinced you to accept?
Over the years, I've been invited many times actually to come out and serve universities and some research labs in Korea. Each time, I always said I have a lot to learn, and I was not really able to respond. But this time it was different. I just released my duty as administrator at UC Merced, where I served as chancellor for the last past 4 years. And also knowing the situation at KAIST, I thought maybe this is the time that I can come out and do my best. I was not sure whether I can do the job, but I at least had the courage to come out and do my best. Yes.
I heard that you like to be called the mentor president, and perhaps in this respect, your skills as a mentor and your focus on communication would really help also at KAIST. Does this also reflect your personality? Are you very communicative and you like to listen to people and interact with a lot of people? Is this mentor president, does that reflect your personality?
I think I gained such maybe interpersonal skills over the years. I used to dedicate myself to particular goals, and really I didn't think I had enough time to do anything else. But over the years, I learned how to serve other people. For instance, when we had some big task, what if somebody else cannot fulfill her own or his own task? It can slow down the whole process. And the best thing is to go and help that person or work with that person. So through such experience, I learned how to work with other people for the common good and achieve certain things jointly. And I think doing the university administration is a similar thing. Even as a professor, it was always worthwhile to help students as a department head or as a dean of engineering or as a chancellor of the university. I always thought that I needed to communicate and help work with other people to achieve common good goals.
This atmosphere of working together and open communication, you said you learned it, I imagine, probably while you were in the US in the past 4 years. But having spent the past 6 or 7 months here in Korea, have you found that the Korean audience or the Korean students and faculty and staff are also receptive to your style of management?
I think when you are truly honest and when people know that what you are striving for, if it is a common good, then I think they will understand, they can understand and be cooperative. On the other hand, if somebody feels that maybe someone else is doing something for his own or her own sake, then they guard against such a person.
Right.
So my principle has been always being honest and then try really hard to serve other people or do something for common good.
I heard that you like to actually go up to students at KAIST and just chat with them. And I guess this is in line with your personality and your style of management. But how do the students react? I'm not sure the KAIST students are used to that. Are they comfortable with that?
In the beginning, when I approached the students in the cafeteria or restaurant, they really didn't know who I was. So they gave me a strange look, actually. Who is this person? Why is this person doing this to me? But these days, now they know my face, and I think they know my heart, really, to trying to communicate with them. So they now say hello, and they talk to me on the street, on campus even. And they send me emails early in the morning or late at night, and they are really open to me. I'm having this challenging issue. Can you help, for instance? So I think that's really a good communication in my view. Yes.
Well, our cameras went to KAIST to check out some of the changes that have been appearing on campus. Let's take a look. Newly appointed in February, the 15th KAIST president, Sung-mo Steve Kang. What is the reason for his special focus on communication?
그 소통한다는 건 우리가 학내에서뿐만 아니라 사회생활 하는데도 절대 중요한 그 소프트 스킬이라고 저는 항상 믿고요. 소통을 위해서는 정말 많이 듣는 그런 쪽으로 하고 또 물어볼 거는 정직하게 물어보고 그렇게 하는 게 정말 마음에 닿는 소통이고 그러면은 좀 진실성도 있고 또 서로 주고받는 사람들 간에 기억하는 것도 더 많이 기억할 수 있고 마음에 담을 수 있다고 그렇게 생각을 합니다.
The true communication he has learned from serving as dean at UC Santa Cruz and chancellor of UC Merced is continued at KAIST. He still enjoys having meals with the students at the cafeteria.
즐거운 시간이죠. 이렇게 우리 훌륭한 학생들하고 같이 시간을 좋은 맛있는 밥을 같이 먹으면서 아무 얘기나 할 수 있다는 게 굉장히 즐거운 시간이에요. 네.
Like his nickname, Captain Smooth, he has the ability to make a conversation natural and comfortable.
무엇보다도 편안한 분위기 속에서 특히 총장님께서 먼저 이것저것 여쭤봐 주셔서 굉장히 색다른 경험이 되었던 것 같아요.
카이스트에 대한 학생들이 가지고 있는 생각을 총장님께 말할 수 있어서 좋았던 시간인 것 같습니다.
Rather than being authoritative, KAIST President Kang is warm-hearted and sincere. He has held various communication events for the students.
도서관에서 이제 총장님의 찾아가는 커피 브레이크에서 막 과자랑 막 샌드위치랑 이런 거 막 많이 주셨거든요. 근데 막 되게 신기했어요.
흔히 학교에서 이제 총장님이라고 생각을 하면은 되게 높으신 분이라서 접근하기도 어렵고 다가가기도 어렵고 대화 주제도 선정하기 어려운데 직접 뵈니까 학생들을 위해서 되게 많이 생각해 주시고 노력해 주시고 학교의 여러 문제점들을 해결하시려고 노력하시는 그런 분 같아서 되게 존경하게 됐어요.
The KAIST president approaches his students in various ways, sometimes as a warm neighbor and sometimes as a respected mentor. His true communication breathes energy into the school campus. You mentioned that your wife is one of your greatest supporters, and also she is of great help to you, I imagine, in your work as well. I hear that she also meets with students with you. What are some of the topics that you talk about in these meetings with your wife and other students?
We usually ask what are the difficulties they face, what are the challenges they face. And also my wife on her own, she goes out and meet with female students. A few months ago she did that with the students in electrical engineering. I think there were some 30-some female students. So she learned the challenges they are facing and then relay such challenging issues to our staff so that they can help resolve such issues.
Well, everyone knows that one of the goals of education, of course, is to build character, but sometimes it feels, or there's quite a few people who say that we seem to have lost that focus here in Korea. The focus is only on academic excellence. Do you see also, or do you agree with that claim?
I think in the past, or even today, yes, the focus has been mainly on how to pass a difficult test and then get high score to advance to next level of education. What we need in the future is more than that, much more than that, actually. It may not go very well with the future needs of the society or even in industry. So we try to bring up a more creative way of giving education, creative learning, creative capability of individuals, so that they don't just repeat what they have learned, rather how you define the problem and solve your own problem. They may not be necessarily solution, but it's fine. But you can try to come up with the best solution.
Could you describe one of those attempts or initiatives in more detail? I think I heard something about an artisans. Is that also part of your aim?
So yes, we try to provide the breadth in our education, not just the science and technology, but as you know, art is a very creative field. So we try to encourage students to learn from artists, or artists that they can observe what is being done on KAIST campus, and who knows, they may provide a good advice or a good guidance. So we have created a new program, Artisans program, Artist in Residence program. So in the first pool, we are inviting 3 writers. They can come stay on KAIST campus. We have a nice apartment, actually. So they can stay either 3 months or up to 6 months even. And they can live on campus. No fixed agenda for them. They can do whatever they wish to do. But we are hoping that maybe they can talk to students once in a while. They can talk to or give lectures to our students, and maybe they can write some good topics which eventually will benefit our education on the campus.
And how has the response been? Have many writers been interested in this project?
We advertised, and I think for 3 openings, I think more than 140 people applied.
Wow,
so
that's
it was
very
a
high.
very, very good response.
Well, that seems to sort of refer or describe your leadership style. I hear that another nickname that you have is actually Captain Smooth. Is this given to you by your wife, or who and how did you get this name? Who gave you this nickname?
So about more than 30 years ago, I worked at the AT&T Bell Labs. It's a world famous, renowned research lab. And I was leading a big project, very important to AT&T as a whole. And we had initially big failure in that big project. It was about developing 32-bit microprocessor chip for the first time in AT&T history and in the world as well. And we had many technical difficulties and surprises. So first project failed. Second project, I was asked to coordinate this team effort. And that's when I got my nickname as Captain Smooth. It's just like a big ship navigating in a big ocean, rough ocean. There's many surprises, difficulties. As a coordinator, I try to address individual issues, help individual team members to overcome such obstacles. And eventually, the project was very successful. So that's how I got my nickname as a Captain Smooth.
Oh, it's not from your wife then. No, okay. So all these achievements leads me to believe that you must have some sort of secret recipe for success, or some particular quality that makes all this possible. Could you share that with us? What do you think it is?
I think it's really effort, sincere effort. I remember when I was a graduate student at UC Berkeley, I had most brilliant advisor, but that advisor truly worked very, very hard. That advisor didn't even take lunch break. He thought he should work hard to do more research and prepare for teaching. I had another advisor who always had some motto on his door saying that in science, self-satisfaction is death. So you can celebrate some achievements, but one shouldn't stop there.
Right.
Always there is a next big thing to do. So that has been my attitude. The even smartest people really had to work very, very hard. So I have always, take that attitude and do my best. And also had a conviction that maybe if I can work hard, a good outcome will follow. So my wife and I, we have a common motto. I always, in my life, always since maybe young kid, I always cherished the motto saying that where there is a will, there is a way.
Right.
But my wife had a better one. She said, where there is a will with a heart, there is a better way. So that is our motto.
That's a good one.
Right.
I might have to copy that for future reference too. As I said before, you are regarded as a huge success story, not only in the US, but of course here in Korea. And you left for the US back in 1969 when it was still very difficult to travel overseas. So, which may lead some of our viewers to believe, or who don't know you, he must have come from a privileged background for him to be able to travel and go to the US and study there at the time. Did you?
No. See, I grew up after Korean War, and I think many families had great difficulties. In fact, I almost supported my own education through tutoring and other albeit jobs in my high school days even, and the college days. I was most fortunate when I was a senior at Yonsei University, president of Yonsei and president of Fairleigh Dickinson University in US. They just established a sister relationship, and Fairleigh Dickinson University invited Yonsei to send one student. So I was very, very fortunate to be selected as the student. So that's how I went to US, and it was a very generous scholarship, no payment for tuition. They gave me even dormitory room for free, even meal tickets. So totally, all I carried was $200 US. And that's the beginning of my life in the US.
So that's where the VIP treatment and the prestigious treatment began. Because I have to admit, I did a little bit of research into your background, and your grandfather, of course, was part of the Korean independence movement, so he was a hero, a national hero. But what prompted you to go to the US? And maybe that also leads to your return to Korea, but why did you want to go to the US then?
Strangely, since I was very young, my grandfather always used to tell me that, Sung-mo, that's my name, you should go to US and study in US, study electrical engineering, get a doctorate and become a professor. I think that was his own dream. So maybe he thought I had such a potential, and he used to tell me that. But I also, at that time, also thought US will be a good place to go, for study abroad. So that was a realization of my grandfather's dream, maybe, and good advice. Yes.
Right. There must have been some difficulties, though, at the time, besides the language barrier and the fact that Korea, as you say, was just emerging from the ashes of war. Nobody knew Korea, or not very much. Didn't you come up against quite a few difficulties? Didn't you want to return to Korea at some point?
I never really thought I should quit and return to Korea. I had a determination, but I had a tremendous difficulty. I thought I was pretty good at English, but was not. Especially in hearing was very difficult. So after each class, I had to ask my neighbor, is this the homework? Am I correct? So I had to make sure that the homework assignment was correctly understood by me. But on the other hand, I think education in Korea was good. Technically, I didn't have any difficulty. So I was able to graduate with the highest honor, and then moved on to graduate school and so on.
And you actually mentioned that your time at UC Berkeley, with the advisors, I guess it was influenced by your great advisors, but that was a turning point for you in which it kind of opened your eyes to a whole new world. Could you describe a little bit to us what happened?
So I went to Berkeley in 1972, actually. In 1972, my wife, whom I met at Fairleigh Dickinson University. She also came from Korea 2 years earlier than I did. And we got married in 1972 in the UN building of New York City. And our honeymoon was crossing the country in an old car. So I drove across the country to go to Berkeley. And soon we found many hippies on the street. The Berkeley was a very liberal campus. They're quite different. I think through that observation and the experience with a lot of different people with different opinions, a different background, I think I became a better person, understand other people as well. Education at Berkeley was also excellent. I mean, it was really one of the best in the world. So I think that was a really eye-opening experience.
That's amazing. Well, I think the breadth of your experience and also the scope of your people experience must have also brought a lot of changes and a breath of fresh air to the campus. And so KAIST has really undergone many, many changes since Dr. Kang came on board. Our cameras went there to see some of the changes in place. Nurturing future entrepreneurs and venture businesses, KAIST Technology Business Incubation Center. We visited KAIST, a subsidiary jointly established with KAIST in 2011. This past January, KAIST introduced the large capacitive multi-touch screen for the first time in the world at an international consumer electronics show.
KAIST는 카이스트의 기술을 기반으로 상품화하는 자회사입니다. 그 중에서도 저희는 교육 사업을 진행하는데요. 스마트 스쿨이 바로 대표적인 상품입니다.
The Smart School of KAIST is a high-tech education system that frees students from school bags with smart pads. Steve Kim emphasizes the role that KAIST has played in the growth of KAIST.
초창기 사업을 진행했을 때 많은 분들의 도움이 필요합니다. 자금 운영을 비롯해서 또 사업을 진행했을 때 상품을 만드는 과정까지가 굉장히 중요하다고 생각하는데요. 이런 부분을 자문해주고 조언해주는 분들이 마땅치 않았습니다. 하지만 학교 내에서 이를 미리 공부하고 연습할 수 있고 나아가서 이를 지원해주는 프로그램은 아주 탁월하고 매우 중요하다고 생각합니다.
KAIST now actively exports to various countries such as Mongolia, Turkey, Japan, and in the Middle East. It will continue its growth with KAIST until every student can receive smart school education. KAIST alumni venture startups stand out not only in the field of IT, but also biotechnology. InnoTherapy is a company specializing in biopharmaceuticals and biomaterials.
물에서도 달라붙는 홍합의 성질을 이용해서 수술용 지혈제를 개발을 하고 있습니다.
InnoTherapy plans to launch its products and enter the global medical appliances market in 2015. What role has KAIST played in the development of InnoTherapy?
카이스트 산학협력단을 통해서 많은 좋은 네트워크를 확보를 할 수가 있고 또 이렇게 그 정성적으로 그리고 정량적으로 또 많은 도움을 주고 계십니다.
Venture businesses that have been born with the passion and perseverance of young talents and the inventive technology of KAIST. KAIST has opened up enormous possibilities. Your personal philosophy of always working hard and also your embracing multicultural personalities and different people, I think, it's probably the reason behind your high-speed promotion. You've really made amazing promotions in the US, and you're the relief pitcher in many critical moments, which, I'm sorry, but naturally leads to my next question. Have you ever tasted failure? Have you ever failed at anything? It almost seems like you've been on this high-speed course to success and never looked back.
I had many failures in my life, but I never gave up. I can always say I can try again. And if you look at even this Edison, he had to fail many times for battery invention. He failed 25,000 times to realize a battery, for instance. So each failure, we really learn something from it and then try a different way to succeed. When you try to solve a difficult mathematics problem, I don't succeed in the first trial. I fail. I try different ways and so on.
Let's talk about failures and successes at KAIST now. More than 20% of graduates from Stanford University are said to start their own businesses, but I don't think it's the same number at KAIST. Is that right? And why do you think this is so?
So far at KAIST we have about 45,000 graduates of KAIST with doctorate degrees, master's degree, and bachelor's degrees. The percentage of graduates who have initiated, say, startup companies, 1.3% compared to more than 20% at Stanford University.
1.3.
So, almost a factor of 20. I think it has been mainly due to particular needs of our society in the past. KAIST has contributed a lot. I think it has fulfilled its mission. But the future mission will be different. I think we need a different kind of education. We need a more creative workforce in industry. Even leading major corporations, they really have difficulty in forecasting what the world would need, the world market would need. So KAIST will take a different approach to bring up future creative workforce who can do some novel things, create new jobs, and or they can join big corporations and come up with a great new invention that can open up the whole field. I think that's what KAIST needs to do in the future.
But isn't it also true that the reason why the business venture 1.3% is so low is that perhaps it says something about the KAIST students' personality? Not to generalize too much, but KAIST students have always performed at the top of their class at any school, I imagine, since they started out in kindergarten. So they're used to success, whereas
Correct.
business ventures always have the inherent risk of failure. Are they more afraid to fail, and is that why it's holding them back?
Yes, I think you have a great question. I think it's our culture in Korea. So we are used to label somebody if somebody didn't succeed in the first trial, for instance.
Yes.
That has to be changed. Yes, KAIST students, they're excellent. They're excellent at what they do. They are afraid of failure. They are good at advancing to next level. So if they graduate from KAIST, they want to go maybe top corporations in in Korea or overseas. So they never think about doing on their own thing. I think safety is another big factor in our society. So I attribute that cost to some home education as well. In my view, I always think about education as a big river. It has origination of water, and then you have all this before going to the ocean.
Right.
College education is like just before the ocean. and home education is at the origin. And if home education promotes safety and big cooperation, students will respond to that. There's also fear that if somebody fails at the startup, then 3 generations will suffer in the family. Yeah, so they really don't have courage. Although at young age they can try something bold and then have a great satisfaction. So this is what we need to instill in our students.
So as president of KAIST, what are some of the changes or measures that you're taking to encourage these students right before they enter the ocean to do something, to try something new and take the jump?
So we have many different approaches at KAIST right now. The one thing that we are initiating is before my coming here, there was a sort of a penalty for students. If their GPA is below a certain point, 3.0, then I think university KAIST imposed them to pay for their tuition. We try not to do that because there was an ill side effect. Students were afraid of falling below 3.0. So just to be safe, they try not to take difficult courses, challenging courses, which is a national law. So when we do that, so we try to encourage students. It's okay for you not to get high marks, but you should really tackle very difficult, challenging courses and learn from it. And that's how you create your future and create a new invention and that sort of things. So we do that. We also try to encourage more discussions among students. So we have Education 3.0. We have professors preparing their lecture materials and make them available on the web. So students study before coming to class. And in the classes, professors do not teach. They just guide their discussions. So they have a lot of discussions in classroom. We also create the BIS Park on campus to promote the students doing some good experiments on their own, discovery lab, and maybe new business plan for realizing their ideas as a commercial product, for instance. So we try to do that so that they can be really more creative workforce for the future of Korea. I think that's what we need in Korea now.
Isn't it true that KAIST students and graduates are probably competitive with the best in the world? I imagine there must be certain circumstances or certain qualities that may hold them back, but to encourage their entrepreneurial sort of debut in Silicon Valley, KAIST is also helping them in very specific ways?
Yes, so we have a program to visit Silicon Valley through our College of Business. So we have a program to bring people to get immersed in Silicon Valley culture and they have experience, make observations. And we also help startup companies to launch their business in Silicon Valley. So we have what is called the end-run project. So we have a very good technologies. So we are providing one-stop service for them to come up with a business plan and get venture funding and launch their startup even in Silicon Valley. In the past, some of our graduates already have done that. So they had a business success in Silicon Valley and was merged by Qualcomm. And some of our graduates are vice presidents at Qualcomm in Silicon Valley, for instance. So we have good examples already.
Wonderful. So with the reduced stress of trying to maintain a GPA of 3.0 and also these opportunities, I imagine the students must feel greatly relieved and able to sort of explore their creativity in their minds. But I hear one of the criticisms also levied at KAIST over the past couple of years was the all-English or the English classes. Many said that it was too early, it was another burden on the students. Dr. Kang, you've maintained this policy of English classes. Could you explain why, despite all the criticism?
Well, let's look at Korea as a nation.
Yes.
For Korea to flourish as a nation, we needed to export more in the future. Domestic market is not big enough for many corporations. So, Samsung, Hyundai, they have to open up more international market and new businesses as well.
Right.
The international languages now happen to be English. And if you go to even Europe, now in Germany, Munich, and Karlsruhe, and other places, or even in France, when they teach the foreign students, they teach in English. English is an international language. So to prepare our future workforce in Korea, I think English is really critically important for them to communicate, to sell their ideas, convince other people why their point is right. So besides, many textbooks we use at KAIST is written in English.
Right.
Also, many excellent articles in science and technology, they are written in English. So they have to understand, criticize such writings or such literature, come up with their own better ideas. So in that regard, English education is important. Even in Europe, many young kids, they can speak 4 or 5 different languages. People do have that capability.
Right.
We have to really educate better in the future.
So it's important to not only digest written information in English, but also to be able to express their own
Right.
ideas and technology in English as well.
Right, yes.
Right. Okay. Well, today we're joined by KAIST President, Dr. Steve Kang, and we'll be right back after this.
Very important for them to have confidence in themselves. Really interact better among students, and they are the future. So we really have to pay good attention to them.
In addition to English skills, I wonder if there are some other soft skills that KAIST students might benefit from. Maybe understanding multi-cultures, maybe just people skills such as working together and cooperation, because that is another one of those things that people say about very smart people. They're very smart, but perhaps are not so good at working with other less smart people. Are there any plans to introduce some other people skills or other skills that might be helpful?
So at KAIST, we try to promote some core values as a university. So we are having still a good discussion on core values, but as an initial thought, I suggested what is called the direct, D-I-R-E-C-T. The first D is a diversity. We have a different thought, different background, but we need to respect that. So that's a D. And then I is integrity. As a person, we really should have integrity so that other people can trust an individual. So that's I. R is respect. We need to respect mutually.
Yes.
And then E is equity. We are same human beings, same human right. And then C is creativity. And the T, last T is teamwork. So I as a really president, try to emphasize diversity a lot. Yes, uniformity is good, but we have many different, even in the same family, all the brothers and sisters, they're different. They have different characters. And the mothers know that. Mothers who really pay individual attention to individual child will be good mother, actually. They can bring up. Universal education is in a way similar. Individually we are different, but they have to work together as a team and respect and value other people's thought. So we can have good discussions, but always respect other people's opinion and try to learn from other people. So I also emphasize in that regard random kindness. It's not calculated kindness. You are not kind just because you know certain individual well. but even a stranger, you need to be kind. So we try to do that at KAIST.
Are there any specific programs that you have in place to promote these core values? Direct?
Yes, so we have the leadership program at KAIST, especially freshmen. They don't have a particular majors, but they have a leadership lecture series, and I often also speak to students to emphasize these points. I also ask professors to be great mentors with emphasis on these points. So I think when professors and the staff people, when they deal with the students, if they also can have such a heart, campus atmosphere will be different, and students can detect and learn and practice such good traits.
When you mentioned what each of the letters stand for in direct, I thought C might stand for communication, because you stress communication, but it was creative, and maybe that's also because creative economy is such a buzzword right now. Dr. Kang, in your opinion, what is creative economy, especially in the field of science and technology?
I think we have to look at what the goal of a creative economy is. I think in essence, we try to create more jobs, more job opportunities, not only for young people, but what about the people who retire early, for instance, at the age of 55 or 65? Still 65 is this is very young age. What are they going to do? How can they contribute for the better economy? And I think they feel also better when they have a job to do. So in my opinion, creative economy should be based on science and technology, because if we want to improve our standard of living, we need to improve the economy by exporting more goods to overseas. And if we have a strong science and technology base to develop such a good technology, which can be a winner in the international market, I think that will be helpful for Korean economy. There is also other kind of technology. It's called appropriate technology or warm technology. What if there is a handicapped people? What if there is an elderly person? How can technology help? And then what about developing countries, Mongol and other countries, where they suffer from lack of good water or electricity? We can export some technology. We have many volunteers actually. Encore Korea is one such a program. Retired KAIST professors, they go overseas and help those countries. So that's another aspect of creative economy. Even though they may not attract dollars to Korea directly, they are opening up many routes to overseas, which will help other corporations to export in the future, for instance. KAIST is also doing lots of education diplomacy. There are a lot of countries coming to KAIST asking how KAIST can help their education in science and technology. So we are working with them, Ethiopia and Brazil and other countries, which will pave the road for more export in the future. So it may not have an immediate impact, but down the road it will improve our economy. And I think that's also part of a creative economy. So my interpretation is very broad, but it should be based on good science and technology. And then creative workforce. Sometimes even big corporations, they don't know what to develop next. Only creative person can come up with some great idea. And develop a new product which can be a winner in the international market. So I think that's what KAIST should do, to bring up such creative individuals, which will help big corporations, small corporations, or some developing countries as well.
Well, after speaking with you today, Dr. Kang, I almost feel envious of the students at KAIST. Not that I'd be able to follow the schooling, of course, but I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to visit us here at Heart to Heart, and I wish you the best of luck during the rest of
Thank you very much for your kind invitation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that was Dr. Steve Kang, president of KAIST. You can see our program once again on our homepage, arirangtv.com. Until next time, bye-bye. Thank you so much.